On today's show, I'm going behind the life of Duncan Boak. Duncan is the founder and chairman for Fifth Sense, a charity for smell and taste disorders. Imagine tucking into your favourite meal and it is just bland, or lighting your favourite candle and there is no smell, or like myself, holding your own child and having little smell of them. Fifth Sense was established back in 2012 by Duncan, who lost his sense of smell as a result of a head injury in 2005. Taste and smell create memories, and Duncan runs this wonderful charity to try and raise more awareness in relation to this condition called anosmia. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Behind the Life of Duncan Boak. And that was another episode of Behind the Life podcast with myself, Adam Lambert. Please give me a follow on Instagram at Behind the Life Podcast, Facebook, Behind the Life Podcast, and if you're listening to this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button below as well as the like button. I'll be back soon for another episode. For now, take care. Good morning, Duncan. How are you?
Morning, Adam. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thank you, Duncan. Thank you for coming onto the show and to share your experiences through, and trying to raise awareness about the lack of smell and taste, Duncan.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
No, we've known each other for quite a few years now.
We have, haven't we now? Yeah.
We have, Duncan, and it'd be just really interesting to find out more about your background, and obviously you suffer this condition. When did this first happen to yourself?
I have a condition called anosmia, which is the medical term for the loss or lack of the sense of smell.
Okay.
In my case, I lost it through a head injury in 2005 when I was 22 years old. I fell down a flight of stairs, banged my head pretty hard, put myself in hospital, and I came out and... the big long-term impact of that accident was me losing my sense of smell, and it's not returned.
When did you realise, Duncan, then after that accident? Can you remember when you first thought, hang on, that there's no smell or taste here?
Yeah, it was after I got out of hospital. I went back to my parents to recuperate, and it was the first meal I remember eating since the accident. I realised it didn't taste of anything, and that's when I realised that I couldn't smell.
And what did you do straight after that? Was there an appointment to the GP, and what did the GP say to you?
Yeah, when I got back to Leeds, where I was living at the time, I made an appointment with my GP and went to see them and said, look, I've had this accident, been really lucky, but I've lost my sense of smell. What can you tell me? And my doctor said, okay, we don't really know much about this. Heard of this happening before. It's very rare. We don't know much about the sense of smell. We don't really know much about how it works, and there's not really anything I can suggest. There's not any treatment or anything. He said it might come back of its own accord. Give it 6 months to a year, and if not, you'll just have to live with it. And I went away from that thinking I was one of a handful of people with this, and I wasn't given any information. I wasn't signposted to anywhere I could get some information or support or anything. This was before we had ready access to the internet, so yeah, I was just sort of left with it.
Oh, and how did it make you feel, mentally as well?
Yeah, we take it for granted, don't we?
Yeah,
we do when we have it. And to be honest, I think after I'd lost it, I sort of took it for granted as well and didn't really fully engage with, with it being a loss. And that's partly because, I'd never paid any attention to my sense of smell when I did have it, really. I didn't really appreciate its significance. We're not taught about it at school. You know, we're sort of blissfully unaware of the contribution it makes to our lives. And there was, I was dealing with the, the impact of quite a severe head injury. I became quite depressed, and I was sort of struggling with that. And the loss of smell was sort of wrapped up in a whole load of other things that were going on. And I didn't really fully appreciate what an impact losing smell would have on me. Sort of about a year after the accident, I had a year of being quite down. And after that, I sort of felt I needed to move on and from the accident, put it behind me. And as part of that, I sort of boxed off the whole smell loss. I tried not to think about it. And over the years, I was aware that my life had changed, that I had changed in all sorts of ways. I felt that emotionally, I was different. Life just didn't have, and experiences just didn't have the same sort of richness and colour to them, and I just felt very disconnected from the world around me, from people in it. I didn't really relate a lot of that to smell, losing my sense of smell. It wasn't until a number of years later that I started to learn in hindsight about the sense of smell, what it does for us. That I was then able to sort of reconcile the impact that losing my sense of smell had on my life and on me.
And how is the loss of sense of smell? How is that linked to the loss of taste as well?
It's an interesting one, because this is one of the questions I get asked a lot. Is does that mean you can't taste? And in actual fact, I say to people, well, I can taste really, really quite well, but in the sort of scientific sense of my sense of taste, what comes from the taste buds in the mouth, sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami, that all works really, really well. And in fact, I'm probably better at detecting subtle differences in sweetness or sourness than people with a fully functional sense of smell, because that's all I've got to focus on, if you like. So there's a real misconception around what the sense of taste is. A lot of the time when people talk about taste, what they're actually referring to is the overall flavour of food, of which smell and taste contribute to. So huge amounts of the flavour of food comes from the sense of smell. So, for example, the flavour you get from fresh basil, so fresh herbs, a lot of that, or most of that flavour actually comes from the sense of smell. When we're eating and drinking, molecules of food that are inside our mouths travel through the back of the mouth into the nasal cavity, and are detected by the receptor cells at the top of the nasal cavity. When we're eating and drinking, molecules of food inside our mouth passes through the back of the mouth into the nose, and are detected by the receptor cells at the top of the nasal cavity. So when we're eating and drinking, we're actually smelling the food inside our mouths as well as tasting it, and that's how the sense of smell contributes to so much of the flavour of food. The thing is, though, when smell contributes to so much of that when people lose a sense of smell, the perception often is that I've lost all smell and taste.
Yeah. Obviously, over the years, you're living with this condition, and then you went and set up a charity. Your charity called Fifth Sense. What made you set that up, Duncan?
The starting point was reading a book called Season to Taste, about by a girl who'd lost a sense of smell also through a head injury, and her sort of journey to, well, recovering it and also learning a huge amount about it. And I read this book, and it was a real eye opener. That was a bit of a catalyst for me to then start looking into smell and smell loss more. I was introduced to an ear, nose and throat surgeon, Carl Philpott, who runs what was the first NHS smell and taste disorder clinic. He and I started communicating, and I realised through Carl that I wasn't one of a handful of people in the world with this condition. There were lots more. And I realised that there was a need. There was a real need for an organisation that could provide support and information to patients and represent them effectively, and improve medical services for patients. Because, what I wished in hindsight was that when I'd been to see my GP, he could have directed me to an organisation that could have provided me with the information and support that I then needed to sort of come to terms with my loss.
So, do you do any work with the NHS as part of the charity?
Yeah, we work closely with a number of ENT consultants in different parts of the UK. So part of the function of Fifth Sense is to provide a signpost to potential diagnosis and treatment where such exists. And through the work that we've done over the years, we've enabled lots of people to be able to get access to diagnosis and treatment in some cases. We need to do more.
Yeah, and regarding, you mentioned Dr. Philpott before, how much medical knowledge is out there, within the world in relation to anosmia?
Not enough, by any stretch of the imagination. This lack of awareness of the importance of the sense of smell that exists throughout society. Well, that includes the medical profession as well. And too often patients are dismissed, they're not listened to, they're told that, well, it's only a sense of smell, big deal, it could be worse, off you go. And that happens a lot.
That must frustrate you then, because mentally it's very challenging having no sense of smell and taste.
We've got 5 senses. We've got 5 ways in which we connect with the world around us. And they're all of equal importance. They just work in different ways. And that was partly why I chose the name Fifth Sense for the charity. It's to say that, we have 5 senses, and also to recognise that smell is often seen as the fifth and least important. Well, that's not the case.
So, Duncan, with your anosmia that you suffer from, how have you adapted over the years?
What I'd say is that I do my best to sort of fully embrace the sensory inputs that I can still experience, and staying positive. I do still feel this sense of disconnection, but it's about how I then compensate for that. We talked about taste and flavour before. So I'm actually a real foodie, really enjoy eating and drinking. Despite not being able to appreciate a lot of the flavour of food, I look to maximise the enjoyment in other ways. So I pay attention to texture, I pay attention to the basic tastes. So, I enjoy dishes and creating dishes that say mix up sweet and sour, and use spices a lot, use chili. Always focusing on the elements that I can still appreciate. And I'll be honest with you as well. When it comes to smell, I still have some memories there. of smells. So if I'm out and about, say with friends or my girlfriend, for example, and we're somewhere, and my girlfriend will say, "Oh wow, it smells amazing here," and rather than sort of push that away as I once did and go, "Oh, well, I can't smell anything, let's not talk about it," I'm completely the opposite now. I'm like, right, okay, tell me, what does it smell like? Describe it. Yeah. And that sort of that description that's given, that can then somehow help me connect with those memories that I've got of smells. So yeah, that's actually something that's become really important to me. It sounds a bit crazy, doesn't it? But yeah, I love having people describe smells to me.
Yeah, well, no, actually, I don't think it does, because we talk about the other senses. Those people out there that are blind, and they'll be asking people, just describe what you can see. And for people with anosmia, it's exactly what you're saying. I've done it myself personally. People have just said, "Oh, doesn't that smell nice?" And I'm like, "What? can you just describe it to me?" So yeah, it is, because we've got those memories of the past. It does try to evoke those memories, doesn't it?
Yeah. Do you find that helps then? Do you find that you're able to sort of reconnect with those memories through other people's descriptions?
I do, yes. Yeah, I do. I'm not, I don't know if afraid is the word, but I'm not almost ashamed actually to say, why, what does it smell like? Because as you said, earlier on, it's a sense. It's like all our senses. We just take them for granted. It's as simple as that, and we have to look to adapt, and it is difficult. But there's also, I don't know about yourself, Duncan, there's also the dangers with anosmia, such as the lack of sense of smell of gas, for example. And it's trying to adapt, with that by putting gas detectors in your house, etc. It's also a huge danger. Regarding your website, well, actually, Fifth Sense itself, fifthsense.org.uk. Just very, very quickly, I just want to touch on the COVID-19 virus at the moment. Have you been getting a lot more traffic coming through your website? Because obviously that's been linked into potentially, one of the side effects of it.
Yes, we have. Our website traffic has gone through the roof, and we've put information about smell loss in the context of COVID-19 on our website, which we're continuing to update as new things emerge. And the feedback we've been receiving from people has been that they've found it very reassuring and helpful, which is positive. From my perspective, I really hope that people who are losing sense of smell in conjunction with COVID-19, that it's a temporary loss, and they get back to normal quite quickly. My next door neighbour, for example, about 3 weeks ago, she sent me a text to say, "Duncan, I need to speak to you. I've lost my sense of smell. I've been looking at your website, really helpful. Any advice you can give me?" So I had a chat with her, and hers has come back. And we're seeing reports of that elsewhere too. So fingers crossed that's going to be the case for all people. There's a group of scientists have come together, the Global Consortium for Chemosensory Research, to look at the link between smell loss and COVID-19. Fifth Sense is involved in this too, and it will be really interesting to see what emerges over time as more information becomes available.
That's great, Duncan. And also, one thing that you announced earlier this year in January about the macro research program, and that's going to be rolled out nationally. Can you just give me a sort of a brief background around that, please?
The macro program is it's a study into the treatment and management of people with chronic rhinosinusitis, and it's being led by Professor Carl Philpott and Professor Claire Hopkins. And so this is a study that's funded by the National Institute for Health Research, and the hope is that it will result in far better treatment and management of patients with CRS much more consistently, because we know anecdotally from patients that often the people are not getting the treatment that they need. Smell loss caused by sinonasal disorders, including chronic rhinosinusitis, is probably one of the biggest causes of smell loss, and potentially it's the most treatable. But we know that management and treatment varies, and so it's a really, really good project, and I'd be really interested to see what comes of it.
Okay, Duncan. So for Fifth Sense, what are your main plans over the next few years, and what are you really excited about?
So the next 3 years are pretty significant ones for Fifth Sense. We were awarded last year. We were awarded a significant grant by the National Lottery Community Fund, which starts at the beginning of this year, and that is supporting us to deliver in a number of different areas. Key area is about increasing awareness of smell and taste disorders and enabling people to get better access to diagnosis and treatment where such exists. So it's going to see us working more closely with the medical profession in different parts of the UK. Enabling people to receive improved support and understanding from healthcare professionals, but also their partners and family members. And then it's continuing to develop resources and tools to help our beneficiaries to make the best use of their sensory abilities. So through smell and taste training. I think in terms of what we're most excited about, it's really about how we're empowering people, empowering our members and our beneficiaries to be champions of their own condition and play a role in changing people's understanding, play a role in working with healthcare professionals to increase their understanding and awareness. So it's the volunteering side of things really, and how we empower our beneficiaries. The model on which Fifth Sense has developed was of a patient, i.e. myself, working in partnership with a clinician, Carl Philpott. The plan is going forwards to replicate that in different areas and improve the situation for patients through these collaborations between our beneficiaries and healthcare professionals.
That's a great message, Duncan. And how can you touched on about funding before? How can people go out there and donate to Fifth Sense?
Anyone who would like to support our work, whether it's through donation or volunteering, just head over to our website, www.fifthsense.org.uk, and there's information there.
Fantastic, Duncan. And I've got to say, obviously, I've known you for a few years now. The work you do is tireless. It's phenomenal. One final question to ask: if for a day, and I think about this myself sometimes, if for a day you could have your full sense of smell and taste back, what would you go and smell again, and what food would you go and taste that you miss the most?
Great question, Adam. The first thing I would do, I would rush around to my girlfriend's, and I would bury my face in her neck and hair, and just basically take in great waffles and go, "Wow, this is what you smell like, Natasha." Yeah. And following that, I'd probably then drag her around London like a bloodhound on a scent, just sort of taking in great wafts of different places, different environments, and just getting all these memories flooding back again, these smell memories. And then I'd probably end up by going to a particularly sort of a particular favourite part of London of mine, Whitechapel, where there are lots of good curry houses. And I'd enjoy going and getting the full, the full sort of flavour experience of a curry. One of my favourite dishes. That's how I'd end the day.
I agree. For me, it would be the smell of my little boy, and I agree, a curry and a nice pint of lager as well. That's what I miss the taste of a good lager. Duncan, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on Behind the Life. You've been a great guest, and keep up the brilliant work of education and getting the message out there and offering support to the public in relation to anosmia. So thank you, Duncan.
Thank you very much, Adam. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to meeting up face to face soon.
Brilliant. Thank you, Duncan. Thank you. And that was another episode of Behind the Life podcast with myself, Adam Lambert. Please give me a follow on Instagram at Behind the Life Podcast, Facebook Behind the Life Podcast, and if you listen to this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button below as well as the like button. I'll be back soon for another episode. For now, take care.